Half a year straight, Maya Turner walked 3 blocks before dawn with the same brown bag, just to feed a stranger everyone pretended didn't exist. She was 22, broke, juggling 2 minimum wage shifts. He was 68, invisible, spinning tales so wild she thought age had stolen his mind. Then uniformed officers appeared at her door, and the life she knew shattered forever. Knuckles against wood, sharp, insistent. Maya's hands trembled as she twisted the knob, still wearing yesterday's scrubs, still tasting exhaustion. 3 figures stood military straight in the dingy hallway, dress blues, ribbons, a silver eagle gleaming on one shoulder. The colonel's jaw was set. "Miss Turner," his voice carried weight, "we need to discuss Henry Wallace." "Henry?" Her pulse spiked. "The man from the transit stop. Did something happen?" The colonel's expression stayed granite hard. "Ma'am, we're here because of what you did. Empty bus shelter at dawn." 6 months back, Maya first saw him. Same 47 bus every dawn at 6:30. 3 blocks south, outside a shuttered dry cleaner. That's where Henry slept. Flattened boxes for a mattress. Ragged army surplus blanket to his shoulders, belongings crammed in a torn grocery sack. Most commuters averted their gaze. Others crossed mid-block to dodge him. Maya did too, initially. 2 full weeks of pretending homelessness was invisible, telling herself her paycheck barely covered her own survival. Late March morning changed everything. She'd assembled an extra turkey wrap for lunch, realized her cafeteria shift stretched till 3. Grocery stocking started at 4. No break to eat. The wrap would spoil in her locker. Henry's eyes tracked her approach, alert, wary. Decades of rejection had taught him to expect cruelty or indifference. "Excuse me." Maya extended the foil-wrapped sandwich. "Made too much breakfast. Want it?" He studied the offering, studied her face. Long silence. "You need that more," he murmured. "Debatable," Maya countered. "But I'm offering." His weathered hands accepted it like sacred treasure. "Much obliged, miss." "Maya." "Henry Wallace." Single nod, dignified. She nearly walked away then, nearly returned to her practiced blindness, but something in his gratitude, not begging, just simple respect, froze her steps. "How do you take coffee?" she asked. His eyebrows lifted. "Black works fine." Next dawn brought a thermos and an orange. Dawn after that, another sandwich plus grapes. Week's end, Maya couldn't imagine mornings without this ritual. 6:15, without exception. Henry always awake, always waiting that same spot. Quote, they'd share 5, maybe 10 minutes before her bus arrived. He asked about her community college nursing classes, 2 evenings weekly when tuition allowed. She asked about his days. He told stories, peculiar stories. "Back when I flew choppers," he'd say, staring past her at memories, "we transported congressmen to locations that don't appear on any atlas." Or worked for a federal intelligence agency once. Can't specify which, but those people never forget a face. Maya assumed confusion, perhaps dementia. Perhaps loneliness constructing a fictional past grander than cardboard and charity. She didn't correct him, just listened. Not everyone showed kindness. April morning, an executive in tailored wool deliberately kicked Henry's blanket toward the gutter. Maya stood 10 feet away, about to cross. "Hey!" She whirled, voice cutting. "What's your problem?" The executive didn't pause. "He's obstructing the walkway." "That's somebody's father," Maya shot back. He vanished into the crowd. Henry sat motionless, retrieving his blanket from oily puddle water. His hands shook, cold or rage Maya couldn't distinguish. She helped wring out the fabric. It reeked of mildew and diesel. "Didn't need to intervene," Henry said quietly. "Actually, I did." He watched her, something shifting behind his eyes, then smiled, sad, knowing. "You've got steel in you. That's valuable." He folded the damp cloth across his knees. "You'll need it ahead." Maya didn't grasp his meaning, not yet. She simply handed over his coffee, unchanged routine, and caught her bus. By May, the pattern felt biological. Wake at 5. Assemble 2 wraps, Henry's, hers, grab fruit, fill the thermos, walk 3 blocks, sit with Henry 10 minutes, board the 6:30. This wasn't charity, didn't register as charity, felt like the single stable anchor in her chaotic existence. Her studio apartment occupied a 4th-floor walk-up in a condemned waiting building, 300 square feet, hot plate replacing a proper stove, shower functional only after kicking ancient pipes, rent $650 monthly, perpetually 2 weeks overdue. March's eviction notice still haunted her. She'd negotiated a repayment plan, extra $40 weekly until caught up. She'd honored it since, which meant every other obligation teetered on default. Her counter told the story. Disconnection warning from the power company. Emergency room debt 2 years old in collections. Student loan deferred repeatedly. Cell service 1 month from termination. Amid that paper chaos, bread and peanut butter. Cut to B-roll, sparse refrigerator. Late May Tuesday, Maya stood at that counter calculating. Morning's paychecks totaled $440 combined. Subtract rent, subtract repayment, subtract 2 weeks transit. $90 remained for everything else. She opened her fridge. 3 eggs left, half-gallon milk. Wilted greens she should have discarded days prior. That was everything. Her stomach had been hollow since lunch. She'd learned to ignore hunger. She'd eat eventually tomorrow, day after. Didn't matter. What mattered, bread and peanut butter. Another week of sandwiches for Henry. Maybe 2 if careful. Maya closed the fridge, leaned forehead against its cold metal. She could stop. Keep the sandwiches herself. Save the coffee money. Pay the electric bill before disconnection. Henry would understand. Would probably insist she stop if he knew her financial reality. But imagining herself walking past that shelter, seeing him, not stopping, impossible. Hospital cafeteria next day, Mrs. Chen noticed. Mrs. Chen supervised a kitchen, 60-something, Taiwanese-American, sharp eyes, missing nothing. 3 decades at this hospital witnessed to every variation of struggle. Eating today? Mrs. Chen asked, observing Maya wipe tables during lunch chaos. Had breakfast? Maya lied. Uh-huh. Mrs. Chen crossed her arms. Feeding that homeless gentleman again? Maya's shoulders tensed. His name's Henry. I know his name, sweetheart. I'm asking if you're feeding him instead of yourself. I'm managing. Mrs. Chen sighed, disappeared into the kitchen. Returned 5 minutes later holding leftover lasagna and a roll. Pressed it into Maya's hands. Eat this immediately, can't have you collapsing on my watch. Her tone softened. He's human, I understand, but you know what else? What? You're human too. Maya stared at the container. Her throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me, just eat. That night, lying on her floor mattress, sold the frame 2 months back for rent, Maya recalculated. Skip Thursday's class, grab extra grocery shift, gain $40, walk to work 3 days weekly instead of buzzing, save $12. Asked the landlord for 1 more week extension. Her phone buzzed. Power company text. Final notice. Disconnection in 7 days without $127 payment. Maya closed her eyes. 1 more week bringing Henry breakfast. That's all she'd commit. 1 week, then explain. He'd understand. Self-preservation came first. Everyone said so. Made logical sense. But Friday dawn came. Maya still made 2 wraps. Still poured the thermos. Still walked 3 blocks. Henry waited, unchanged. When he split his sandwich, handed half back, fair's fair, he said simply. Maya turned away so he wouldn't witness her tears. Monday morning, Henry was gone. Maya stood clutching sandwich and thermos, scanning the barren sidewalk. His cardboard vanished. His sack vanished. Even the damp patch where he'd slept had evaporated, erasing all evidence. She waited through her bus. Through the next. By the 3rd bus, she'd be late for her shift and her chest felt carved hollow. She told herself he'd relocated. People did that. Maybe harassment. Maybe police swept the block. Didn't necessarily mean catastrophe, but she checked again that evening post-shift. Nothing. Tuesday dawn, empty. Wednesday, empty. Thursday, the knot in her stomach grew unbearable. She detoured to Mercy Street shelter en route home from grocery stocking, 10 blocks out of her way, feet screaming. The intake worker barely glanced up. Name? Looking for someone. Henry Wallace, elderly white male, late 60s, usually sleeps near the Clayton transit stop. We don't track non-residents. Can you just check? Maya insisted. Please. The woman sighed, typed, waited, shook her head. Nobody by that name in our system. What about hospitals? Maya pressed. Is there a database? Are you family? Maya hesitated. I'm a friend. Then no, privacy regulations. The woman's expression softened marginally. Listen, sweetheart, people migrate. He probably found another location, they always do. Maya called 3 hospitals that night. None would disclose anything without family relation or patient ID she didn't possess. 7th day, she returned to the shelter with a paper sack and a note inside. Hope you're safe. M. She left it where Henry used to sleep, tried not imagining she was leaving offerings for a ghost. That afternoon, he was there. Maya nearly missed her stop heading home because she wasn't expecting him. But there he sat, same flattened cardboard, same torn sack beside him, thinner now, face more gaunt. She exited next stop, sprinted back. Henry! He looked up, momentary non-recognition. Then his features softened. Miss Maya? She crouched beside him, breathing hard. Where were you? I checked shelters, called hospitals. Had a spell. His voice rasped. I'm all right now. You don't look all right. I'm vertical. That counts. He attempted a smile, failed. That's when she noticed his hand, fresh scar across the back, pink and healing, too precise for accident or altercation, surgical. What happened to your hand? Henry pulled his sleeve down fast. Nothing. Old injury flaring. Henry, I'm fine. His tone sealed the topic. They sat silent. Then Henry reached into his jacket, extracted a sealed envelope. White, creased, shaky handwriting addressing the front. He extended it toward her. If something happens, he said quietly, I need you to mail this. Maya stared at the envelope. What do you mean? If something happens, just promise. You're not going anywhere. Maya, his voice turned firm, grave. Promise me. She accepted the envelope, heavier than expected. I promise. Henry nodded slowly, weight visibly lifting. Good girl. She wanted to demand what was inside, why he'd vanished, what that scar truly meant. But her bus approached and Henry had already closed his eyes, leaning back like conversation had drained him. Maya slipped the envelope into her bag, caught the bus. She didn't open it. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Henry collapsed. Maya was handing him the coffee thermos when his hand started trembling. Not usual cold or age tremor. This was violent, uncontrolled. The thermos slipped from his fingers, clattered sidewalk, coffee flooding concrete. Henry! He tried speaking, words emerged slurred. His eyes rolled backward. Then his entire body folded, knees buckled, shoulders crumpled forward. Maya caught him before skull met pavement. Somebody call 911, she screamed. Woman across the street pulled her phone. Jogger stopped, hesitated, kept running. 2 bus passengers just stared. Maya eased Henry onto his side, hands shaking, his breathing shallow, erratic, lips paling. Stay with me, she whispered. Come on, Henry, stay with me. Ambulance arrived 7 minutes later, felt like 7 hours. Maya climbed aboard without asking permission. Paramedic tried stopping her. Are you family? But she was already inside, gripping Henry's hand as they loaded the gurney. I'm all he has, she said. The paramedic didn't argue. Hospital chaos moved simultaneously, too fast and too slow. They wheeled Henry through emergency doors. A nurse guided Maya to a waiting area. Green bolted chairs, buzzing fluorescents, muted TV showing morning news. She sat, realizing she still clutched the empty thermos. Her cafeteria shift had started 20 minutes ago. She pulled out her phone, texted Mrs. Chen. Emergency. Can't make it, I'm sorry. Mrs. Chen replied instantly. You okay? Henry collapsed. I'm at the hospital. Which one? St. Vincent's. I'll cover. Keep me updated. Maya closed her eyes, fought tears. An hour crawled. Another. Finally, a nurse called her name. Maya Turner. She jumped up. That's me. The nurse led her to a desk where a scrubs-clad woman sat behind a computer looking equally exhausted and irritated. Name tag R. Williams. Patient intake. You're here for Henry Wallace? The woman asked without looking up. Yes, is he okay? He's stable, severe dehydration, possible stroke, running tests. She clicked through screens. But we have a problem. He has no insurance, no ID, no emergency contact. We need to transfer him to county overflow. Maya's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Means he'll receive care, just not here. County General has capacity. County General is a nightmare. I've heard the horror stories. People wait days. It's policy, the woman said flatly. Without proof of insurance or payment ability, he's a veteran. Maya's voice sharpened. Check the VA system. The woman finally looked up. Do you have proof? No, but then I can't check. We need documentation. VA card, discharge papers, something. Maya's mind raced. She thought about the envelope Henry gave her, still in her bag at home. Thought about his stories, helicopters, intelligence agencies, congressmen. She'd always assumed delusion. But what if she'd been wrong? I'm his niece, Maya said. The woman's eyebrows rose. His niece? Yes. And you don't have any paperwork? He's been street living. He doesn't carry documents in his pocket. Maya leaned forward. But I know he served. I know he has benefits. Just run the check, please. The woman stared at her, clearly skeptical. Then someone behind them spoke. A doctor in a white coat, South Asian, maybe mid-40s. Run it, Rachel. The intake worker turned. Dr. Patel, just run it. Courtesy. Dr. Patel looked at Maya. If there's a match, we keep him. If not, county transfer. Fair? Maya nodded quickly. Fair. Rachel's side started typing. The wait felt infinite, 30 seconds stretching into eternity. Then the computer beeped. Rachel's expression transformed. She leaned toward the screen reading. Her jaw tightened. What? Dr. Patel asked. There's a match. Henry Allen Wallace, born 1957, honorable discharge 2001. She scrolled. Service record is heavily redacted. Almost everything's blacked out. Dr. Patel moved behind the desk to look. What does that mean? It means his service was classified, Rachel said quietly. She looked at Maya differently now, less annoyed, more confused. What exactly did your uncle do in the military? Maya's throat felt parched. I don't know. He didn't discuss it much. True, in a way, he discussed it constantly. She just hadn't believed. Dr. Patel straightened. Transfer him to Ward C. I'll handle VA billing authorization myself. Are you sure? Rachel asked. If the VA disputes, they won't, not with a record like this. He looked at Maya. You can see him in about an hour. He'll need someone checking in. I will, Maya said, every day. She sat in the waiting room until they admitted her to his room. Henry was barely conscious. IV feeding his arm. Monitors beeping softly beside the bed. He looked diminished, swallowed by white sheets and hospital machinery. Hey, she said softly, pulling a chair close. His eyes opened, found her face. He tried smiling. You didn't have to, he whispered. Yeah, I did. He reached for her hand, the one without the IV. Weak but steady grip. You've got that steel? He murmured. Good. She stayed until visiting hours ended, stayed through her grocery shift. Stayed until a nurse gently insisted he needed rest, that she could return in the morning. Walking through the hospital lobby, Maya passed the cafeteria where she worked. Mrs. Chen was still there, wiping tables at shift's end. Their eyes met through glass doors. Mrs. Chen just nodded. Maya nodded back. Bus ride home, she stared out the window, thinking about Rachel's face when she'd seen Henry's file, thinking about all those redacted lines, all that classified history. She thought about the envelope. And for the first time, she wondered if Henry's stories hadn't been stories at all. 3 weeks later, Henry transferred to a VA long-term care facility across town. 2 buses plus a 15-minute walk from Maya's apartment. She couldn't visit as often as desired, but she went when possible. Twice weekly, sometimes 3 if her schedule permitted. The facility exceeded expectations. Clean rooms, staff who genuinely cared. Henry had his own bed, his own window, regular meals, medication, real blankets. He looked better, stronger, his mind seemed clearer too. Early July visit, he was sitting upright when she arrived, a notebook open on his lap. He was writing, slow, careful handwriting filling page after page. "What's that?" Maya asked, setting down the small bag she'd brought. Cookies from the hospital cafeteria. Mrs. Chen had sent them. Henry looked up. "My memory's going," he said plainly. "Wrote down things that matter, things that are true." He closed the notebook, held it toward her. "I want you to have this. Henry, just take it, please." She accepted the notebook, small, pocket-sized, worn leather cover. She flipped through pages, names, dates, locations, number strings she didn't comprehend, some entries clear, others hurried, almost frantic. "What is all this?" "If anyone ever asks," Henry said, "you'll know what's true." Maya didn't understand, but she slipped the notebook into her bag beside the envelope he'd given her weeks prior. 2 puzzle pieces, no visible picture yet. Her life was improving marginally. The hospital had given her a small raise, 20 cents hourly, but something. She'd finally caught up on rent. Electric company agreed to a payment plan. She could breathe slightly easier. She'd used part of her first full paycheck to buy Henry something. She pulled it from the bag. Thick, warm blanket, navy blue, soft fleece. Henry stared at it, then at her, his eyes filled with tears. "Nobody's done this much for me in 20 years, he whispered. Maya draped the blanket over his legs. "Well, somebody should have." He reached for her hand, held it long, not saying anything. Some things didn't need words. Henry died on a Tuesday in late August. The facility called Maya at 6 in the morning. She was preparing for her shift, standing in her tiny kitchen making coffee when her phone rang. "Miss Turner, this is Pine Valley VA Care. I'm calling about Henry Wallace." Her hand froze on the coffee pot. "He passed peacefully in his sleep last night. Heart failure. I'm very sorry for your loss." The words didn't register initially. Maya heard them, but they floated somewhere outside her body, disconnected from anything real. "Miss Turner, are you there?" "Yes." Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I'm here. We'll need you to come in for his personal effects. There's not much. The blanket you brought, the notebook, a few clothes, and we'll need to discuss arrangements. Arrangements for his remains. If there's no family, I'll be there in an hour." She hung up, stood in her kitchen staring at nothing. The coffee pot was still in her hand. Henry was gone. The man she'd brought breakfast to every morning for half a year. The man who'd told impossible stories and split his sandwich when she was hungry. The man who'd looked at her like she mattered, like what she did mattered, gone. Maya set the coffee pot down carefully, sat on the floor. She didn't cry, couldn't. The grief was too massive, too heavy. It sat in her chest like stone. She called in sick, took the bus across town to the facility. They gave her a plastic bag with Henry's belongings, the blue blanket folded neatly, 3 shirts, worn shoes, the notebook, and at the bottom a small envelope addressed to her in Henry's handwriting. She opened it right there in the hallway. A single photograph. Henry, decades younger, maybe his 40s, standing in military dress uniform. 3 rows of medals across his chest. On either side, 2 men in expensive suits. She recognized one, a congressman who'd been in news recently, now retired. The other man she didn't know, but he had that look, power, authority. She flipped the photograph over. 3 words written on the back in Henry's shaky handwriting, "Remember the girl." Maya's hands trembled. She went home, sat on her floor mattress, pulled out the other envelope, the sealed one Henry had given her months ago, the one she'd promised to mail if something happened. She opened it. Inside, a letter handwritten on lined paper, another copy of the photograph. The letter read, "To whoever reads this, probably General Victoria Ashford if the address still works. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I don't have much to leave. No family, no money, nothing the world values, but I want you to know about someone who mattered to me. Her name is Maya Turner. For 6 months, she brought me breakfast every single morning, not because she had to, not because anyone was watching. She did it because she saw me when everyone else looked away. I was a ghost. The system forgot me 20 years ago, and I'd accepted that. But she didn't forget. She didn't let me disappear. This country took everything I gave, then lost me in the paperwork. But this girl, this struggling, broke, beautiful girl, she gave me dignity when I had nothing. She deserves better than what this country gave me. Remember her like she remembered me." Henry Wallace, GS-14, retired. Maya read it 3 times. Each time the words felt heavier. She looked at the address on the envelope. General Victoria Ashford, Pentagon, Office of the Inspector General. Henry hadn't been confused, hadn't been embellishing. He'd been telling the truth the entire time. Next morning, Maya went to the post office, stood in line 20 minutes with the envelope in her hand. When she reached the counter, she almost didn't mail it, almost took it home and forgot about it. But she'd made a promise. "I need to send this," she said, sliding the envelope across the counter. The postal worker weighed it. $5.60. Maya paid with crumpled bills from her wallet. She watched the woman stamp it, toss it into a bin with hundreds of other letters. It disappeared into the pile like it had never existed. Walking out of the post office, Maya felt hollow. Nobody was going to read that letter. Even if they did, nobody was going to care. Henry was just another forgotten veteran, another name in a system that had already failed him. His letter would get filed away somewhere, and that would be the end. She went to his memorial service that Friday, held at the VA facility. Just her, a chaplain, one nurse who'd worked Henry's wing. No family, no military honor guard, no flag. The chaplain said generic words about service and sacrifice. Maya barely heard them. When it ended, she walked back to the bus shelter where she'd met Henry 8 months ago. Someone else was sleeping there now. A younger man, maybe 30, with a cardboard sign reading, "Hungry, anything helps." Maya stood there long, staring at the spot where Henry used to sleep. Then she went home. 2 weeks passed. She returned to work. Back to double shifts, night classes, her empty apartment. Life kept moving forward because it had to. She didn't think about the letter, didn't let herself hope it mattered, until one morning in mid-September when she heard the knock. 6 a.m. She was running late, pulling on her hospital scrubs, gulping instant coffee. SFX, knocking. The knock was firm. Official. She opened the door. 3 people in military dress uniforms stood in the hallway. 1 colonel, 2 junior officers. Their brass buttons caught the dim hallway light. The colonel was tall, white, maybe 55, his face serious, not unkind. "Maya Turner?" Her heart hammered. "Yes, I'm Colonel Hayes. These are Officers Martinez and Carter. We're here about Henry Wallace." The world tilted. "We need to ask you some questions," the colonel continued. "General Ashford sent us." Maya's voice emerged barely above a whisper. "General Ashford?" "Yes, ma'am. She received Mr. Wallace's letter." He paused. "And she wants to meet you." Maya had never been on a plane before. Colonel Hayes arranged everything. Flight from local airport to Ronald Reagan Washington National. Car waiting at the terminal. Hotel room in Arlington. Small but clean, nicer than anywhere she'd ever stayed. "General Ashford will see you tomorrow morning at 0900, Hayes said as they drove through DC traffic. "Pentagon E-ring, don't worry. We'll escort you through security." Maya stared out the window at monuments and marble buildings. Everything felt enormous, overwhelming, wrong. "Why does she want to meet me?" she asked quietly. Hayes glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "That's her story to tell, Miss Turner, not mine." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in the hotel bed, softest mattress she'd ever felt, and stared at the ceiling, thinking about Henry. wondering what she'd walked into, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake mailing that letter. 8:30 next morning, Hayes picked her up. They drove to the Pentagon. Security took 20 minutes. Metal detectors, ID checks, a visitor badge clipped to her borrowed blazer. Mrs. Chen had lent it along with dress pants slightly too long. Maya felt like she was wearing a costume. Hayes led her through endless corridors, polished floors, flags hanging from walls, uniforms everywhere. People walking with purpose, carrying folders, speaking in low, urgent voices. They stopped outside a door marked Office of the Inspector General. Hayes knocked twice. "Come in," a woman's voice called. The office was smaller than Maya expected. A desk, bookshelves, flags in the corner, and behind the desk, a woman in a crisp uniform with 4 stars on her shoulders. General Victoria Ashford was early 60s, silver hair pulled back. Sharp eyes that measured Maya in a single glance. She stood when they entered. "Miss Turner." Ashford came around the desk, extended her hand. "Thank you for coming." Maya shook it. The general's grip was firm, but not crushing. "Please sit." Maya sat. Hayes remained standing by the door. Ashford returned to her chair, opened a file on her desk. Maya could see Henry's name on the tab. "I received Mr. Wallace's letter 3 weeks ago," Ashford began. "It was the first concrete proof we'd had in 15 years that he was alive." She paused. "And then proof that he'd died." Maya's throat tightened. "I didn't know what else to do with it." "You did exactly the right thing." Ashford leaned forward. "Henry Wallace was one of the finest intelligence officers this country ever produced. He flew classified missions during some of our most sensitive operations. Desert Storm, Kosovo. Missions that still don't exist on paper." She tapped the file. "When he retired in 2001, he should have had full benefits, full support. Instead, he fell through the cracks." "How?" Maya asked. "PTSD, a bureaucratic error that lost his file for 2 years. By the time we found it, he'd already disappeared. The VA declared him missing. Nobody followed up." Ashford's voice hardened. "We failed him. He told me stories," Maya said quietly, "about helicopters and congressmen and missions. I thought he was confused. He wasn't." Ashford pulled out the photograph, the one from Henry's letter. This was taken in 1998. That's Senator Kirkland on the left, Deputy Director Monroe on the right. Henry had just extracted them from a collapsing situation in the Balkans. Saved their lives. She looked at Maya. "He saved a lot of lives. And then we forgot him." The weight in Maya's chest grew heavier. "I'm conducting an audit," Ashford continued. "Inspector General review of how the VA handles veterans with classified service records. Henry's case is the worst I've found, but it's not the only one. There are others, dozens, maybe hundreds, lost in the system." "Why are you telling me this?" Ashford closed the file. "Because Henry's letter wasn't about him. It was about you." She met Maya's eyes. "He wanted me to remember what you did, and I want to honor that. I just brought him breakfast." "Exactly." Ashford's voice softened. "You saw a person everyone else had erased. You gave him dignity when the system gave him nothing. That matters, Miss Turner. That matters more than you know." Maya didn't know what to say. "I want to make this right," Ashford said. "Establish a memorial fund in Henry's name. Reform the VA's tracking systems for classified veterans. And I want you to testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee about what happened." Maya's stomach dropped. "Testify? Tell them what you told me, what Henry meant, what it looks like when the system fails." Ashford leaned back. "I can push policy changes from inside, but your voice, someone who actually lived this, that's what makes people listen." "I'm nobody," Maya whispered. "Why would they listen to me?" Ashford's expression changed, became something fierce and certain. "Rank measures authority," she said quietly. "Character measures worth." She let that sit a moment. "They'll listen," Ashford continued, "because you're the one person in this whole story who did the right thing. Not for recognition, not for reward, just because it needed doing." She stood. "Will you do it?" Maya thought about Henry, about his handwriting on that letter. Remember the girl? She took a shaky breath. Yes. They had 3 weeks to prepare. General Ashford's team descended on Maya like a well-oiled machine. Attorneys, communications specialists, policy advisors. They set her up in a small office at the Pentagon Annex, walked her through what a congressional hearing actually meant. You'll sit at the witness table, one attorney explained, showing her photographs of the committee room. Senators will ask questions. Some will be supportive, others will challenge you. Stay calm. Stick to your story. My story, Maya repeated. What you did for Henry Wallace, how the system failed him, why it matters. But as the days progressed, Maya realized they didn't want her whole story. They wanted a version. We should probably downplay the poverty angle, the communications director said during one prep session. She was young, white, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than Maya's rent. Focus on patriotism, service, keep it positive. Poverty isn't positive? Maya asked. It's just it can be polarizing. Some senators might see it as political. It's not political. It's true. The woman smiled tightly. We're just trying to keep the message clean. Maya looked at General Ashford, who'd been silent in the corner. What do you think? Maya asked her directly. Ashford set down her coffee. I think if we erase who you are, we erase why Henry's letter mattered. She looked at her team. She speaks her truth, or this is just theater. The communications director opened her mouth to argue, thought better of it. Yes, ma'am. The hearing was scheduled for October 12th. Maya flew back to D.C. the night before. Couldn't sleep, spent hours staring at her testimony, reading it over until the words stopped making sense. Mrs. Chen had called that afternoon. Are you nervous? Terrified. Good, means you care. Mrs. Chen's voice was warm. Just tell them what happened. They can't argue with the truth. They're senators. They can argue with anything. Then let them. You'll still be right. The morning of the hearing, Maya put on the suit Ashford's team had bought for her. Navy blue, professional. It fit perfectly, but it didn't feel like hers. She stared at herself in the hotel mirror, barely recognized the person looking back. Colonel Hayes drove her to Capitol Hill. They entered through a side entrance, avoiding the reporters already gathering outside. The Senate Armed Services Committee room was bigger than she'd imagined. Tiered seating rising like a courtroom, cameras in the back, press filling benches, senators trickling in, talking amongst themselves, ignoring her. Maya sat at the witness table. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the wood. General Ashford testified first. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ashford began, her voice carrying through the room. Henry Allen Wallace served this nation with distinction for 23 years. He flew combat missions in Desert Storm, evacuated diplomats under fire in Kosovo, transported high-value assets through hostile territory in operations that remain classified to this day. She paused, letting that sink in. And when he retired, we lost him. Not in combat, not overseas. We lost him in paperwork, in bureaucratic errors, in a system that failed to track veterans whose service was too classified to fit neatly into our databases. Ashford opened Henry's file. By the time we realized he was missing, Henry Wallace was living on the street, sleeping at a bus shelter, forgotten by the country he'd served. One senator leaned forward. Senator Patricia Drummond, a Democrat from Massachusetts, known for veteran advocacy. General, how many cases like this exist? We've identified 47 so far, Senator. We believe there are more. Murmurs rippled through the room. Then it was Maya's turn. She walked to the witness table on legs that felt like water, sat down. A microphone was adjusted in front of her. Every eye in the room was on her. Senator Drummond spoke first. Ms. Turner, thank you for being here. I understand you knew Henry Wallace personally. Yes, ma'am. Can you tell us about that relationship? Maya's throat was dry. She looked down at her written testimony, then pushed it aside. She didn't need it. I met Henry in March, she began. He slept at the bus shelter I used every morning. I started bringing him breakfast. A sandwich, coffee, nothing fancy. Her voice steadied as she spoke. "I didn't know he was a veteran. He told me stories about flying helicopters, about missions, but I thought he was confused. Maybe ill. I didn't believe him." She paused. "But I brought him breakfast anyway, because it didn't matter if the stories were true, he was still a person." Senator Drummond nodded. "And you did this for how long?" 6 months, every single day." "Why?" The question hung in the air. "Because nobody else did," Maya said simply. "And because he was someone's father, someone's friend, someone who mattered, even if the world forgot." Another senator spoke up. Senator Robert Gaines, a Republican from Texas, older. Skeptical expression. "Ms. Turner, that's admirable, but we're here to discuss policy. The VA budget is already strained. Are you suggesting taxpayers should fund care for every homeless person in America?" The room went quiet. Maya looked at him, felt something shift inside her. Fear becoming anger, anger becoming clarity. "I'm not suggesting anything about every homeless person," she said, her voice firm. "I'm talking about Henry Wallace specifically, a man who flew senators to safety, who risked his life for this country. You made him a promise when you sent him into danger." She leaned forward slightly. "I kept my promise with the sandwich. You kept yours with paperwork that buried him." The room went completely silent. Senator Gaines stiffened, opened his mouth, closed it. Reporters in the back were scribbling furiously. Senator Drummond cleared her throat. "Ms. Turner, do you believe the system can be fixed?" "I believe it has to be," Maya said, "because if we only care about people when we find out they used to be powerful, when we discover they have medals and classified files, then we've already lost." Her voice cracked slightly. "Henry Wallace wasn't a hero because of his service record. He was a hero because even when the world forgot him, he still woke up every day with dignity." She looked around the room. "He deserved better. They all deserve better, and if you can't see that, if you need me to sit here and prove that veterans are worth caring about, then I don't know what I'm doing here." No one spoke. Then General Ashford stood. MC 72. "Mr. Chairman, if I may." The chairman nodded. Ashford stepped to the microphone. "Effective immediately, the Inspector General's office is establishing a dedicated task force for veterans with classified service records. We're allocating $5 million to the Henry Wallace Memorial Fund, which will provide emergency support and case management." She looked at Maya. "And I'm appointing Ms. Turner as community liaison. She'll oversee grant distribution and veteran outreach." Maya's eyes widened. "What?" Ashford smiled slightly. "She knows what accountability looks like." The hearing continued for another hour. Questions about implementation, oversight, budget allocation. But Maya barely heard it. When it ended, reporters swarmed her in the hallway. Cameras, microphones. Questions shouted from every direction. "Ms. Turner, how does it feel to change policy? Are you going to work with the VA full-time? Do you have a message for other veterans?" Colonel Hayes and 2 other officers formed a barrier guiding her through the crowd, but one reporter's voice cut through. "How does it feel to be famous?" Maya stopped, turned. "I don't want to be famous," she said quietly. "I want Henry to be remembered." That soundbite played on every news channel that night. 6 months later, everything had changed, and nothing had changed. MC 75. Maya still lived in the same studio apartment, still took the same bus to work. But now she worked at the VA hospital 3 days weekly as a nurse's aide. She'd finally finished her certification. Spent the other 2 days managing the Henry Wallace Memorial Fund. The fund had grown beyond anyone's expectations. $5 million from the Department of Defense, another $2 million from private donations after her testimony went viral. They'd awarded grants to 10 organizations in the first round. Homeless veteran outreach programs, PTSD counseling centers, a legal aid clinic helping former service members navigate VA bureaucracy. Maya sat in a small office at the VA hospital, reviewed applications for the second round of grants, 43 requests. She couldn't fund them all, but she'd fund as many as she could. Her phone buzzed. Text from General Ashford. Good work on the grant selections. Coffee next week? Maya smiled, typed back, Yes, I'll bring the sandwiches. She'd become unlikely friends with the general over the past 6 months. Ashford had a brother who'd been a Marine, killed in Iraq in 2004. She understood what it meant when the system failed people. That afternoon, Maya was making rounds when she noticed a young woman sitting alone in the waiting area, early 20s, brown hair, wearing an army jacket 3 sizes too big. She was staring at the floor, arms wrapped around herself. Maya grabbed 2 cups of coffee, sat down beside her. Do you take it black or with sugar? Maya asked gently. The woman looked up startled, then smiled slightly. Sugar, please. Maya handed her the cup. I'm Maya. I work here. Sarah, I'm trying to get my benefits sorted out. They keep telling me to come back. Fill out more forms. What branch? Army. Medic. Discharged last year. Maya saw herself in Sarah's exhausted eyes, saw Henry in the way she held herself, trying to maintain dignity while the system ground her down. Come with me. She took Sarah to her office, pulled out the notebook Henry had given her, filled with names and numbers and processes for navigating VA bureaucracy. We're going to fix this, Maya said, right now. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Why are you helping me? Maya thought about Henry, about that first morning at the bus shelter, because somebody taught me, small things aren't small. Later that week, Maya stood at Arlington National Cemetery. Henry had been reinterred here with full military honors. His headstone read, Henry Allen Wallace. Intelligence Officer, U.S. Army, 1957-2025. She knelt, placed a peanut butter sandwich on the stone, wrapped in wax paper. Same as always. I kept my promise, she whispered. The autumn wind moved through the trees. She stayed for a long time, remembering. 1 year after Henry's death, the Henry Wallace Memorial Fund had served over 2,000 veterans. Maya continued working as a VA nurse and fund director. She'd moved to a better apartment, nothing fancy, just a place with heat that worked and a kitchen with a real stove. She was saving money for the first time in her life, but every morning she still woke at 5:30, still made her coffee the same way, still took the same bus route, even though she didn't have to anymore. One Tuesday morning, she stood at that same bus shelter, the place where she'd first met Henry. A young girl stood beside her, maybe 16. Part of a mentorship program Maya had started through the fund. Maya handed the girl a brown paper bag. For later, the girl peeked inside. A sandwich, a banana, a bottle of water. Someone taught me, Maya said quietly, that small things aren't small. The girl nodded, not quite understanding yet, but she would. The bus pulled up. They climbed aboard together. As the bus rolled away from the shelter, Maya looked out the window at the empty sidewalk where Henry used to sleep. For just a moment, she could have sworn she saw him there, smiling, tipping an invisible hat. Then the bus turned the corner, and he was gone. But what he'd taught her remained. Kindness doesn't need an audience. Fairness doesn't need permission. And change begins with seeing people the world wants to forget. The Henry Wallace Memorial Fund has served over 2,000 veterans in its first year. Maya Turner continues to work as a VA nurse and fund director. In 2026, Congress passed the Wallace Act, requiring the VA to establish tracking protocols for veterans with classified service records. What small act of kindness will you choose today? Someone near you needs to be seen. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, please like and subscribe to Truly Black and White. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. At Truly Black and White, we don't sanitize the struggle or soften the truth. We tell it raw because authenticity deserves nothing less. If today's story resonated with you, hit that like button, join the conversation below, and subscribe so you're here for the next powerful story.